It was May 4, 1980. In hospitals, factories, and village squares across Yugoslavia, everything stopped. Radios went silent, people wept. The nation stood still. Josip Broz Tito was dead. For over 3 decades, he had ruled Yugoslavia with an iron hand and a careful smile. A man born of war, who stitched together a nation from deep ethnic divides, held it together by sheer will and whose absence would one day unravel it. But Tito's story began, not in a palace, but in a small Croatian village. He was born in 1892. In Kumrovec, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. His parents were peasants, his father a Croat, his mother a Slovene. Multilingual and multi-ethnic from birth, Tito would later reflect the diversity and contradictions of the country he came to rule. As a young man, he worked as a metalworker and machinist. He joined the labor movement early, moved by socialist ideals and the harsh realities of working-class life. When World War I broke out, Tito was drafted into the Austro-Hungarian army and sent to the Eastern Front. There, he was wounded and captured by the Russians. He spent years as a prisoner of war and experienced that radicalized him further. After the Bolshevik Revolution, Tito found his way into communist circles. He returned to the Balkans in 1920. Now a committed Marxist and member of the newly formed Communist Party of Yugoslavia. Over the next 2 decades, Tito rose quietly through the party's underground ranks. The Kingdom of Yugoslavia, created after World War I, was a fragile mosaic of Croats, Serbs, Slovenes, Bosniaks, Albanians, and others lived under a monarchy increasingly plagued by instability and repression. In 1937, Tito was appointed General Secretary of the Communist Party. And then, in 1941, everything changed. Germany invaded Yugoslavia. The Axis powers dismembered the country. Croatia became a fascist puppet state under the Ustashi regime. Serbia fell under German occupation. Other regions were divided between Italy and Hungary. Chaos and brutality followed. Tito, now in his late 40s, led the resistance from mountain hideouts and forest encampments. The Partisans, his multi-ethnic communist guerrilla force, fought both the occupiers and the royalist Chetniks who sought to restore the monarchy. The war was brutal. Towns were burned, civilians massacred, ethnic tensions flared. But Tito's forces grew. They welcomed Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, Muslims, anyone willing to fight. By 1944, the Allies recognized Tito's partisans as the legitimate resistance. British supplies flowed in. German forces retreated. When the war ended in 1945, Tito stood victorious, not just as a general, but as the de facto leader of Yugoslavia, and he moved quickly. The monarchy was abolished. A new constitution was drafted. The Federal People's Republic of Yugoslavia was declared 6 republics under one socialist federation: Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Montenegro, and Macedonia. Tito became prime minister, then president, and eventually president for life. But this was no Soviet satellite. In 1948, Tito broke with Stalin. Moscow had expected Tito to follow orders, but Tito refused to cede control. He rejected Soviet demands, charted an independent course, and was promptly expelled from the Commonwealth. It could have been fatal, but Tito survived and thrived. Yugoslavia became a unique experiment, a socialist state outside the Soviet bloc. Western countries, eager to weaken Stalin's grip, offered aid. Tito accepted it without abandoning his Marxist vision. Domestically, he introduced self-management, socialism. Factories were run by workers' councils. Local governments had more autonomy. The system was complex, often inefficient, but it was different, and for a time, it worked. Yugoslavia experienced relative prosperity. Education expanded. Healthcare was free. Roads and industry were built. A robust system of internal security kept dissidents in check. But compared to Eastern Bloc regimes, Yugoslavia felt open. Citizens could travel abroad. Western films played in theaters. Blue jeans and rock music circulated freely. Tito cultivated an image of unity. He was the father of the nation, the bridge between Serbs and Croats, Slovenes and Bosniaks. He spoke of brotherhood and unity, not nationalism. He banned ethnic-based political parties. He cracked down hard on separatists and extremists, Croatian nationalists, Serbian hardliners, Albanian agitators, and he succeeded for a time. The 1960s and 70s brought further decentralization. The 1974 Constitution gave significant autonomy to each republic and province. It was designed to preserve balance, but it planted the seeds of future division. Beneath the surface, ethnic tensions never disappeared. They were suppressed, not resolved. Tito knew this. He kept power centralized in himself. And then, in 1980, that center vanished. Tito died at 87. The man who had held the mosaic together was gone. What followed was a slow, quiet unraveling. Collective presidency that replaced him lacked authority. Economic problems grew debt, inflation, unemployment. The international order that had allowed Yugoslavia to balance East and West began to collapse by the late 1980s. Nationalist leaders emerged across the republics in Serbia. Slobodan Milosevic rose to power, promising to protect Serbs, centralize the state, and challenge the autonomy of Kosovo and Vojvodina. In Croatia and Slovenia, leaders pushed for greater independence. Bosnia, a fragile multi-ethnic republic, was caught in the middle. The old slogans brotherhood and unity no longer held sway in 1991. Slovenia and Croatia declared independence. War followed. Bosnia erupted into violence. Ethnic cleansing, mass rape and genocide returned to a land that had once believed itself beyond such horrors by the end of the decade. Yugoslavia had ceased to exist, only blood remained. Looking back, some blamed Tito for suppressing national identities without solving their underlying tensions. Others credit him for maintaining peace, prosperity, and dignity for a diverse nation in a violent century. He was authoritarian but independent, a communist but anti-Soviet, a unifier but not a democrat. He ruled through strength, charisma, and control. And when that vanished, so did the fragile balance he maintained. Josip Broz Tito built Yugoslavia not on geography alone, but on the dream that different peoples could share one state if bound by something greater than ethnicity. That dream died with him, and in its place came one of the most violent fractures in modern European history. But for nearly 4 decades, through war, ideology, and pressure from all sides, Tito held that dream together by sheer force of personality, vision, and resolve. He remains a figure of contradiction to some, a dictator to others, a hero to history, a man who made a country where no country had ever truly held, and whose absence proved just how much of it had lived in him alone.